The wind crawled over the high ramparts of Winterfell like a living thing, carrying with it the sharp tang of melting snow and distant smoke. Beneath the weirwood's bleached canopy, Bran Stark sat unmoving in his wheeled chair, lids half drawn, the crimson leaves shivering around him with every faint breath of the night. He had come to know the Godswood as a second skin, its roots a braided lattice of ancient memory that called to him in quiet pulses. Yet even that boundless well of sight seemed small this hour, when the world's greatest terror flowered hundreds of leagues south in King's Landing. He felt it first as a tremor in the air, the hush before the scream. Ravens reeled above the courtyard, black wings cut against purple twilight, and their voices cluttered the sky. Bran's mind slid through them one by one, an easy drift now, as natural as slipping a hand beneath warm water. Feathers brushed his thoughts, and the world opened. Wintertown shrinking away beneath beating pinions. The King's Road an old scar carved through the north, the neck steaming under dusk. Southward he chased the dying sun, each flap of wings a heartbeat, each mile a moment. The riverland swept below in bronze sheets, villages no larger than pebbles on a tilted board. From the raven's eyes came scattered shards of dread, campfires snuffed in fear, fields left fallow, bells tolling warning with no prayers left to offer. There, far ahead, the ruby glow of conflagration bled upward, licking the low clouds. King's Landing, a smear of flame on the edge of the world, as though the horizon itself were molten. Bran tasted ash on borrowed tongues. Another heartbeat, then another, and the rush of fire burst rose louder, a living roar that swallowed the cawing of his ragged flock. Somewhere inside him, a room he had never named tightened around his heart. He sent the ravens spiraling downward. Streets twisted through choking pillars of smoke, their cobbles buckling and screaming in sudden heat. Small folk ran, faces gray with soot, clutching children, loaves, or nothing at all. The Red Keep's towers glinted scarlet where dragonfire licked their stones. Bran swept onward, searching the roiling sky where, above the agony, wings wider than ships beat thunder from the clouds. Drogon, and atop the monstrous black silhouette sat Daenerys Targaryen, silver hair streaming like war banner flame. Bran reached for her the way thirst reaches for water. Yet the mind he found was opaque, a furnace of wrath and grief, churning beneath scales of will too strong to pierce. She did not see him. But Drogon saw everything. Hot air raced along swordly sharp spines, muscles the size of oaks coiled in anticipation of the next plunge. Draped across them like living shadow, Bran sensed the doors of perception ajar, just wide enough to slip a thought between the cracks of draconic instinct. For a breath he hesitated. Somewhere in this chaos his sister Arya might run bladed, sharp and desperate through alleyways. Somewhere, Jaime Lannister could be dragging his maimed body toward redemption or doom. Tyrion, Jon, Sandor. Threads all wound tight around this moment's throat. If he entered the heart of the beast, what would become of those fragile, mortal choices? He tasted a future flash. Flame sweeping a fleeing girl with green eyes and soot-streaked cheeks. Tasted the carbon char on skin not yet burned. Drogon's arc tipped, jaws yawning, fire gathering in that impossible furnace behind his fangs. Bran slipped in. At once weight vanished, replaced by a colossal, oppressive awareness of sinew, heat, and fathomless hunger. Every heartbeat cracked like a smith's hammer. The air was a tapestry of swirling updrafts and hawthorns. Drogon rode as easily as a trout rides current. Bran's own body, frail, broken, miles away, was a remembered echo. Here was power too immense for his human frame. Talons to tear castles, wings to slab aside storms, a throat for breathing living furnaces. He did not seize Drogon's will. He joined it, two flames twining, one cold blue, one feral red. Instinct roared, grief shrieked, and beneath it Bran's calm wove a skein of winter stillness. For a moment, Daenerys' furious mantra hammered through scales and bone. Dracarys, Dracarys, Dracarys. But the command passed into a solvent of ancient weirwood memory and bled away at the edges. The dragon banked too sharply, the corridors of air folding like cloth. A gout of fire meant for another thoroughfare sheared wide, falling instead upon the marble flank of the great sept's tortured ruin. Marble hissed like wet flesh. The shock of diverted flame jolted Daenerys atop the saddle of spike and sinew. Bran felt her confusion prickle. She leaned forward, heels urging the monster to obey. Drogon thrashed, but Bran pressed calm along every nerve. No, not calm. Purpose. Below lay streets already charred to ember, but beyond them sprawled the unburned quarter of Flea Bottom, where terrified knots of people still fled. Bran's borrowed eyes, enormous slit-pupilled, could read their patterns like ants on parchment. He drifted Drogon's path wide, then wider, climbing on a column of heated air till the city flattened in a single grim mosaic. Bell towers buckled, ash-blanketed tiled roofs like the season's first snow. Somewhere the great bell still pealed, though Bran doubted it carried meaning any longer. Daenerys shouted something lost to the maelstrom. Drogon craned his serpentine neck. Bran sensed the queen's desperation flicker, then flare into suspicion. He had little time. To wrest control fully would ignite her fury and risk Drogon's frenzy. Instead, he coaxed the beast toward the Blackwater, where cool river air threatened to smother flame glee. He braided memory of soaring ravens into Drogon's senses, an image of wide northern sky, of starlight unsoiled by war. The dragon's mighty chest shuddered, a confused snort of smoke curling from nostrils the size of shields. The city rang beneath with 1,000 mortal tragedies. He heard them not as a cacophony, but as a rough tide of life scratching to endure. A woman's high wail, a market goat screaming as it ran alight, a palace guard weeping behind gilded helm. Somewhere, far down one crooked lane, a hound uttered an unlovely howl. Each sound branched inside Bran, a living tree sprouting terror for leaves. Yet Drogon's heart hammered only power. Wings, fire, wings, fire. Branch by branch, Bran pruned that fury. He layered cold wind across Drogon's senses, memories of snow-dusted boughs and howl of ghost wolves in the frosted dusk. It did not pacify the dragon. No, nothing could. But it bent the inferno to his direction. Drogon's descent steepened, angled toward the river mouth, where burning ships cracked apart, masts thrust skyward like skeletal fossil fangs. Bran counted each ragged heartbeat, knowing Daenerys' own would be rattling like dice in an iron cup. She screamed now, striking Drogon's neck with a gloved fist. Her voice, sharp as splintering crystal, was lost in the gale. Yet Bran felt it deep in the sinew he rode, fear sheathed in rage, a daughter of two tyrannies. Her father's madness and the world's betrayed hope. He pitied her, but pity could not stay his path. They skimmed above the river, and the torrent of heat surprised them both, lifting Drogon on a furnace draft. Bran angled a wing so the spines barely kissed the water's surface. Steam exploded behind. The sudden doioth of vapor swathed them. For an instant, Drogon's flames guttered in his deep chest, starved of air. Bran thrust memory of a mountain gale into those lungs, channeling the impetus upward rather than inward. Shuddering, the dragon loosed fire skyward in a savage pillar that left the water untouched. It flared useless into the nothing above, a bloom of angry orange. Boats beneath bobbed, spared. Daenerys' shock cracked through Bran like a spear of lightning. She clutched at spines, mouth open with disbelief. Bran felt the moment she realized some unseen hand guided her dragon, and in that heartbeat, her mind hardened as Valyrian steel. She reached again for that ancestral phrase, Dracarys, but hesitation vertigo spat in her. Drogon's great head twitched side to side, interpreting two masters. Bran wove again. This time he unfurled a vision from the weirwood's oldest dream. Children of the forest dancing in a ring of carved stone, strange glowing sap in their swaying hands. The echo of prehistoric night hummed across Drogon's marrow. In that hush, even Daenerys' command grew small, a distant thunder over ghost hills. The dragon's limbs loosened. A sigh rumbled from the furnace of his belly. For one tremulous moment, Bran ruled undisputed. He banked them away from the Blackwater and followed the curve of the outer wall. Ash snowed gently here, thickening already cooling stones. Fires still gutted the poorer districts, but the main threat lay in the Red Keep, where the lion banners yet hung from crumbling parapets. Bran might have burned it thoroughly and ended Lannister reign in a single breath, but that future rang bitter, for he saw another, stone collapsing on captives below. Some were soldiers, yes, but others were scullions, scribes, stable boys. Every destiny entangled. Instead, he guided Drogon toward the ramparts, where lines of gold cloaks clustered on crenellations, firing arrows, or staring in mute horror. Drogon's talons raked stone, scattering men like dice across a board. Bran felt no need for flame. The presence of the beast alone unstrung their courage. They fled like wind-tossed wheat. Below, inside the gates once barred against Daenerys, civilians stumbled through open arches toward the fields, the path cleared by their own guardians' panic. He could not save them all. The city wept blood and ash in arteries too tangled for a single dragon's grace. Yet each lane spared from fire sang relief through Bran's borrowed veins, small but potent as rain on a drought field. The ground tilted. Drogon's massive wings pumped to steady them, but there, a sudden seizure of control as Daenerys regained her balance. Her will slammed at Bran like iron doors. He reeled, the bond strained to breaking. Drogon shrieked, caught between forces. Bran tasted molten copper where the dragon's throat gathered flame anew, volatile and eager. Daenerys leaned forward, white hair slick with sweat, eyes alight with a fury that might scorch the seed itself. Across the bond Bran felt her anguish. The loss of Missandei, the betrayal of Varys, the cold counsel of Jon, the unyielding thrum of ancient prophecy, whispering that only fire could cleanse chains forged across ages. She would not surrender her vengeance. Her voice cracked the air. Drac! Bran poured himself deeper than bone. He fed the dragon a memory no dragon had lived. A boy of 10 tumbling from a tower, wind shrieking past ears, sky twisting like torn cloth. The sickening stop, the crack of childhood ended. Pain swallowed time, and though Drogon's scales knew no such injury, the raw shock clanged within those primal nerves. For an instant, the flame collapsed unspent. Drogon faltered. The city below surged upward and spun, but wings steadied. Daenerys froze, shaken by the phantom agony coursing through her mount. She clung harder, losing the word on her tongue. Bran pressed advantage, steering them toward the bay again, past blazing warehouses where wildfire barrels detonated in incandescent bursts. Explosive plumes rolled upward, green halos lighting Drogon's obsidian hide. Beneath that radiance, Bran glimpsed the queen's silhouette, a dark rider astride a blacker beast, a living nightmare. Yet in the fragile hush between heartbeats, she seemed suddenly small. They soared. Columns of smoke parted for their passage, then collapsed behind like curtains. Bran felt the dragon's exhaustion nibbling the edges of rage. Each gout of thwarted fire fizzed in his throat, seeking release that would not come. Sweat sheened in Daenerys' brow. Her grip slackened as fatigue seeped past fury. Bran gave neither rest nor answer. He guided Drogon in high spirals, letting the city's burning grid drift below, always just out of flame's reach. Somewhere along the broken main thoroughfare, Jon Snow trudged against rivers of refugees, his sword never raised, eyes wide with horror. Bran felt him distantly, a warm pulse in cold indifference, yet could not spare the focus. Another thread called louder, a high whistling keen. He turned Drogon's gaze skyward and found, far above, a dark moat growing, an arrow of steel and ash. One of Qyburn's scorpions left unburned, its operator steady enough to aim into this maelstrom. Bran pivoted a wing. The bolt sheared past. So close he felt its weight. It spun into the clouds, lost. Drogon lashed tail. The stone tower that hid the scorpion burst apart in a roar of shattered masonry. Bran had not commanded it. The dragon acted on instinct, and Bran allowed the destructive motion. Stones rained into narrower streets, but better rubble than fire. "We end this," Daenerys roared at the storm of her own making. Her voice quavered, not from fear, but from the erosion of purpose. Bran felt her vow unravel. What was conquest if she sat astride flame yet could not wield it? What was prophecy if the weapon refused the hand? Still she clutched at Drogon's neck ridge, desperate. Bran sensed her preparing for one grand thrust of will, to seize the moment and wrench the dragon wholly to her own. Already his hold frayed like old rope. He sought refuge in the roots of the world tree, that deep hum of green seeping through every living thing. He remembered Hodor's gentle murmur. Summer fields outside Old Town glowing gold beneath early sun, and beyond that, the quiet of a universe spinning in endless dark. All of it funneled through him into Drogon, saturating scaled hide with stillness older than Valyria's first spark. For the first time since the long night of House Targaryen's birthing, the dragon ceased all flame, all roar. Massive wings spread, cupping wind. In that dive of silence, they hung poised above a city still blazing. But for a brief breath, paused amid hell. Daenerys stood on the dragon's back, enraged tears carving rivulets through smoke on her cheeks. She stared down over her kingdom, or what remained, and saw not a field of enemies, but a wasteland of bones. She sought to hate it, needed to, but hatred found no purchase where Bran's stillness lay. Doubt seeped like chill water beneath her ribs. Drogon turned his huge head, black eyes flecked red, and stared straight at her as though expecting an answer she could no longer speak. Bran let go. He did not fall away but flowed out, retreating along invisible threads toward the ravens that circled still at the city's edge. The dragon bucked, free of unseen reins, yet his first instinct was not fire but confusion. Bran watched from 5 pairs of raven eyes as Drogon hovered, wings drumming, the queen straddling his spine in mute fury. An arrow loosed, from whom Bran could not see, and thudded harmless off obsidian scale. Drogon roared at that prick more in warning than wrath, and for precious seconds fire did not answer. Bran's consciousness slipped further, across the river, beyond tiled roofs, into the weirwood cradle of Winterfell's dusk. Cold whispered at his brow. The wind, too long neglected, ruffled his hair. Yet memory lingered behind Drogon's dark eyes, a ghost taste of ancient forests that would not fade quickly. The beast banked southward, away from the Red Keep's bleeding stones. Daenerys screamed commands, hammered fists, yet Drogon beat his thunderous wings and carried her out over the Blackwater's smoking waves, as though chasing some far cry of colder sky. Bran opened his own eyes beneath Winterfell's godswood and saw the first snowflake of summer drifting through red leaves. But the story had only begun. Tension lingered like thunder beyond the wall of the world. Down in the ash-clogged streets, men still killed for a breath of space. Mothers still searched for lost daughters, and the War of Crowns had shifted only by one imperceptible tick of the cosmic wheel. Yet, in that tick, lay a new branch on the tree of time, smaller than a splinter, fragile as frost. Whether it might grow to a mighty limb or snap beneath the weight of vengeance would depend on hearts yet beating, and on the one heart of a dragon that now remembered the song of snow. Night deepened. High tide hissed against burning hulks along the quay, gulping flame in hungry mouths of brine. Somewhere on the western hills, the bells ceased at last, their echoes strangled by distance until silence grew unbroken. The moon climbed, a chipped silver coin tossed among cinders. In Winterfell, Bran released a breath he did not know he held and tasted salt from seas his body had never touched. He listened to the quiet beneath. Wolves padding along battlements, stable hands whispering gossip of far wars. A dire wolf's lonely howl for pack across the gift. All ordinary sounds, anchoring him to a life half forgotten. The river of future still roared behind his eyes, branching, splitting, recombining in endless froth. Some courses glittered with peace, others blazed with wars yet bloodier than those ended. But amid that chaos Bran found, for the first time in moons, a path no seer had ever walked. A dragon's mind seeded with the heart of the weirwood. Such a seed might sprout ruin or redemption, and the choice was not yet set. Far south, wings churned smoke-flecked moonlight. Drogon banked once more over the city, circling the ruins in vast silence, a vulture the size of a cathedral. None dared fire upon him now. Scorpions shattered, archers fled, and the queen, upon his back, understood suddenly she was carried by something that no longer answered to any tongue she knew. And yet, there she perched, hair whipping alpine white, face slack with something whiter than fear. Below her, King's Landing smoldered like a field of spent torches. But in narrow alleys, where flames had never reached, pockets of life stirred, guided by unseen breezes that seemed always to blow opposite the dragon's path. Families crawled from cellars. Sisters clung round brothers. Babies squalled, proof against death. They looked up and saw, not savior, not destroyer, but something both and neither. A black silhouette stilling against the moon, as quiet as a shadow on the face of time. They did not know the boy who had borrowed that shadow. They did not know that within Winterfell's walls, Bran Stark bowed his head and whispered thanks to nameless gods for the small mercy of one night's restraint. Nor could they know that the war would wake anew with sunrise, different perhaps, but no less vicious. Alliances would fray, queens would mourn, wolves would call. Yet tonight, for the smallest of hours, the flames blew sideways and the dead count slowed. And a dragon carried two hearts in its chest, one blazing red, one quiet white. They beat as one. In the hush of early dawn, Bran turned his chair along the Godswood path, wheels tracking lightly over damp soil. He felt the tremor of ravens roosting overhead, restless, awaiting next flight. He let them be. Across courtyard stones, his sister Sansa stalked in twilight talk with Sir Davos. Voices low. Bran heard only fragments. The Queen, wildfire, the North must. But the words washed past him like shallow streams. The deeper river pulled elsewhere, south, always south where smoke yet smeared the daybreak. He closed his eyes once more, not to flee Winterfell but to bridge the endless black between. He did not push his mind inside Drogon. The dragon needed the freedom of its own terror and grace. Instead he brushed like feather against the scaled surface, a whisper that tasted of snow. Drogon shuddered, wings faltering a beat, then steadied. Such a small touch. Yet across that improbable distance Bran felt a reply. A deep, echoing purr, the rumble of mountain caverns under starlit frost. Terror softened. Over the bay, Daenerys clung, blinded by wind and racked by the slow dawning of confusion. She who had been breaker of chains found herself chained to a creature's new, inexplicable longing. Beneath her, Drogon oriented northward, nostrils sampling frigid memory. A roar trembled through him, not wrath, but something raw and half-forgotten, like the first breath a hatchling takes upon cracking shell. Bran opened his eyes to Winterfell skies losing their last stars, and he wondered, if a dragon began to dream of snow, would winter come for all, or might spring bloom eternal from that unlikely chill? He had no answer, only the hush of leaves and the slow drip of melting ice. Yet he felt the wheel of story shift beneath him, ever so slightly, and knew the hourglass of this new tale had only now been turned. He let the future flow without tether, because the night at last had grown nearly quiet, and in that fragile quiet, the embers of mercy burned hotter than fire. Shiat and Yain. The smoke that draped King's Landing hung for hours like a soiled shroud, blotting the moon and muddying dawn to the color of bruised peach. Tyrion Lannister limped through drifting ash that gathered in eddies around his boots, the air so thick with grit that every breath rasped his throat raw. He did not know how long he had been wandering. Time had abandoned the city along with mercy, but he felt the moment the sky changed. Something deeper than instinct pulled his gaze upward, and he saw the black shape of Drogon turning in vast, deliberate circles high above the rubble. Each beat of the monstrous wing set in clouds rippling like pond water. For long minutes the dragon made no sound, and the hush beneath those sweeping arcs grew uncanny. Fires crackled, timbers collapsed, people moaned and wept in every alley. Yet over all of it lay a blanket of waiting, as though the entire ruin held its breath under the watch of an eerie sentinel who no longer wished to burn. Tyrion clutched the folds of his scorched doublet, felt flecks of singed fabric flake away, and found himself whispering an absurd thread of plea. Keep flying, just keep flying. He did not know to whom he prayed. Not to gods, surely. They had feasted enough on lions and sparrows alike. Perhaps he prayed to the boy he had once carried on his back, through dark tunnels below Winterfell, a cripple who had grown into something the songs had never foreseen. Another shape moved at the edge of Tyrion's blurred vision. Jon Snow, armor crusted with soot, hair hanging in damp ropes, trudged through the carnage with ghost padding silently at his side. The direwolf's white coat was streaked amber with dust and blood, eyes lambent in the gloom. Jon seemed a ghost himself, sword dragged low in one slack fist, the other hand pressed to a welt on his brow, where Arya's thrown cobble had struck him minutes. Or was it hours? Earlier, when she and the Clegane lad had helped half the street flee, Tyrion lifted a hand in weary greeting, and Jon altered course with the dead man's stagger of exhaustion. They met amid what once had been a merchant's district, now a charnel warren of blackened carts and twisted iron. "She's gone to the river," Tyrion croaked, nodding to the sky. "Or rather, the dragon goes where it will, and she has little choice but follow." Jon's eyes tracked the distant shadow above. "Something's wrong with him," he murmured. "He circles and circles but won't strike." Tyrion's throat cracked on bitter laughter. "Perhaps Seven help us. He's had his fill at last. Or perhaps someone has found a way to whisper sense into a monster's ear." He hesitated. "You know your brother, the new King of Winter, better than I. Could he do such a thing?" Jon blinked, struggling to reorder reality. "Bran can see through wolves and ravens. He saved us at Winterfell by turning a murder of crows on the Night King at the last moment. But a dragon..." His words frayed. "I saw him reach Hodor's mind once. It near tore Hodor apart. And yet Drogon is not a stable door meant for pushing and pulling," Tyrion said softly. He stared as the dragon arced again, wings catching the first true breath of sunrise, a wash of pale gold across ebony scales. "If Bran has done this, whatever it is, he gambles with more than one life. You know how Daenerys treats those she believes have stolen her reigns." Jon's jaw clenched. A long, shrill scream cut between them. A child's. They turned together. A girl no older than 8 sprinted from the arch of a half-collapsed doorway, arms flailing, hair a tangle of soot-clotted curls. Ghost bounded ahead, interposed between her and a tottering half-burned wagon, just before its wheels snapped and the heap slid toward her. The direwolf braced, the wagon's mass rebuffed by sheer muscle and bone and fury. The girl stumbled into Tyrion, who knelt, drawing her into trembling arms. She stared past him, dazed and mute, at embers dancing on the breeze like devil fireflies. He saw her lips shaping silent words, "Mother, sister, please," and felt an ancient ache tear open inside the cage of his ribs. Jon shoved his sword into its scabbard, knelt too, and brushed ash from the child's cheek. "We'll find you somewhere safe," he promised, though he could name no such place. His promise was a word grown pale in this dawn. Still, he repeated it until she nodded. Whether in understanding or simple surrender to adult authority, he could not tell. Tyrion rose and scanned the street. He recognized no landmarks. Every corner looked identical in ruin. But somewhere, not far, Davos had led others toward the dragon pit's broken walls, which now served as a makeshift refuge. Tyrion pointed. "That way," he said, voice steadier than he felt. "And hope the ground does not eat us before we get there." They began picking through debris, Ghost scouting ahead, Tyrion half carrying the girl when her small legs faltered. Jon walked at their other flank, sword unsheathed again, brows drawn. 300 paces later, they would remember the number because in later nights it returned in dreams. They came upon bodies laid as though by unseen hands in a careful line along the gutter. A woman, her son of perhaps 5 years, and a newborn limp against the woman's breast. No burns marred their skin. Their lips were blue, their noses and mouths clogged with ash, smothered where they huddled from the heat. Tyrion swallowed a surge of bile. Jon closed the child's vacant eyes. The little girl clutched Tyrion tighter, burying her face in his shoulder. High above, Drogon's shadow crossed the street, eclipsing the horror for a breath. No flame followed, no roar. Only the hush of wings and the creak of air moved by continents of muscle. Southeast of the city walls, outside the range of shattered scorpions, Daenerys Targaryen clung to Drogon's ridged neck, in a rictus of rage and disbelief. Each time she pressed her will upon him, she met an unyielding curtain of alien calm, a glacier where once her bond had found crackling wildfire. It felt less like resistance than dilution, as though the dragon's essence had been poured into a vast cold ocean where her commands diffused to nothing. She tried everything: heal against scale, whispered pleas, shouted epithets in high Valyrian. She tapped once more into the memory of eggs cradled against burning wood, of her voice calling them alive over the pyre. She called Drogon by his hatchling nicknames, words she had not spoken since marrying Air. Still the dragon banked wide, climbing a thermal that smelled of brine and smoke, ignoring the city's heart as though it were nothing but remote ghosts. A sob broke loose from Daenerys' chest, raw and sudden. Across her vision the black water gleamed, reflecting the red smear of dawn. Ships, those not sunk or half-burned, hugged the far bank, oars shipping, sailors staring skyward. She could almost feel their fear like a tide in her bones, how every man and woman below awaited her wrath. She had once drawn fierce strength from that awe. Now it felt hollow when her mount no longer answered. She looked down at the scorched sprawl she had forged. Smoke still poured from 1,000 wounds. In some districts the fires would smolder for days, yet much of the city remained unburned, its rooftops wet with dew that had fallen during the long night of terror. In her fury she had promised ruin entire, but here was defiance in brick and mortar where fire had not reached. Worse, within those stones lived the small folk she claimed to free, and they huddled now under her threat alone. Her chest constricted. A memory slashed her. Missandei on the rampart of Dragonstone, voice clear even as death's shadow fell. Dracarys Doi. Condemnation had rung like bell metal. She had sworn to honor it, to make ashes of every chain. But mercy, mercy, what of mercy? She had told Jon there was none left. Yet the emptiness inside her now felt less like delivered justice, and more like an echoing abyss that no flame could fill. She knelt forward over Drogon's spine, pressing her brow to cool scale, a ridiculous gesture of supplication. "Please," she whispered in the common tongue, voice cracked with salt. "Listen. Listen. I need you. They must fear us, or nothing we've lost means anything. Master Ma." Drogon's only answer was a thunderous intake of breath that shuddered along his ribs. She braced for the rumble of fire, but it never came. Instead, he exhaled in a long sigh, as though releasing centuries of sorrow. Her fists tightened. "Where is your fury, my child?" she rasped. "Where is our vengeance?" And in some unseen chamber of Drogon's mind, one she had always known but never truly entered, something shifted like a door unbarred. She felt a draft of strange, snow-scented air. A hush, as of winter forest. Distant wolves baying at half-remembered moons. It was not her memory, nor Drogon's. It was a third presence, woven of old roots and spectral blood. In that moment she knew, with the icy clarity of sword steel, someone else had been here. Bran Stark, the silent boy in the chair, eyes like bottomless night. The strange weight of his gaze during their brief meeting at Winterfell, when he had simply said to her, "A broken wheel isn't a better wheel." She had not understood him then. Now she tasted in Drogon's calm the flavor of Bran's stillness. And her blood burned with humiliation, horror, and sudden, unreasoning fear. "Get out," she hissed into the scalding air, though she knew the boy was far away. "You will not steal him from me. You will not." The dragon banked again, this time turning northward, leaving smoke-wreathed sprawl behind. Daenerys clung harder, wind whipping tears from her eyes. The sea rolled beneath, cold and indifferent. She tasted salt on her lips, could not tell if from waves or her own grief. She pressed her cheek to black scale, that once felt like power incarnate, now mutinous with alien calm. And she realized that for the first time since she had stepped into that funeral pyre on the Dothraki Sea, she was utterly helpless. A brittle quiet took root in her chest where rage once lived. Out of that quiet rose something colder, intention. If the boy king of ravens thought to master her dragon, she would teach him that a dragon's mother was not so easily bent. But intention meant nothing while she still soared on wings not her own. She needed ground. She needed allies. The Unsullied camped beyond the gates might still answer her call, but they would not loose scorpions on Drogon. Grey Worm would sooner die. She needed knowledge. How did one shatter a warg's hold? Could she coax, bargain, or burn the foreign consciousness out? Fire could scour most things, but she doubted even wildfire cleansed dreams from a mind thousands of leagues away. She would find a way. She must. For now, she endured the northern course, eyes fixed on far clouds tinged rose by new sun. Perhaps Drogon aimed only to circle and return. Or perhaps he flew to some instinctive roost in forgotten hills. For the first time, she was not the rider guiding destiny, but cargo along for the journey. She bit the inside of her cheek until iron flooded her mouth, grounding herself in pain. Then she breathed deep, squared shoulders against the wind, and vowed silently to break whatever enchantment chained her dragon, even if it meant hunting the cripple boy across every mile of ice and snow that lay between here and the wall's ghost. In Winterfell's library, soot-stained torches guttered as Maester Wolkan hurried through stacks with parchment flapping from his hands. He burst into the council chamber, adjoining, and found Sansa Stark conferring with Sir Davos over a crude charcoal map of Westeros, smudged by fingerprints. Arya lounged in the window alcove, sharpening needle but watching everything with predatory alertness. Lady Sansa Wolkan wheezed. A raven arrived, a single bird, exhausted, almost dead on the sill. From Harrenhal. Harrenhal? Sansa's eyes narrowed. What news from that ruin? Wolkan spread the parchment. Not news, my lady. A warning. Or perhaps a plea. It says the Riverlords rally refugees fleeing the fires. But more, it carries talk of unnatural stillness in the sky. Villagers along the Trident swear they saw a dragon pass overhead before dawn. But get this, no flames, no shrieks, simply gliding north as though in search of something. Arya's whetstone paused. North? She echoed. How far? Hard to say, my lady. Harrenhal's maester speculates it follows the Green Fork. Perhaps toward Moat Cailin. They fear a second sack. Wolkan swallowed. But he writes that the beast's eyes glowed. So one witness swore, an eerie blue. Davos frowned. Dragons' eyes are red, gold, or black, never blue. Arya slid needle back into its sheath. Unless someone blue is looking out through them. Sansa felt a chill that had nothing to do with weather. Send reply, she ordered Wolkan. Tell Harrenhal's garrison to light watch fires along every tower and to keep archers at ready in case the dragon descends. But caution them. Do not provoke unless attacked. We know too little. And Wolkan nodded and hastened away. When the door shut, Sansa rubbed her temples. If Bran is riding that creature, we must know his purpose. He said he would watch. He never said he would act. Davos folded arms. Perhaps he acts for mercy. Reports say part of King's Landing stands yet, because the dragon turned away. Mercy that left half a city burning, Sansa said wearily. Mercy to the north can look like madness to the Reach. Arya hopped down, crossing arms. What if Bran's stuck? Remember what happened to Hodor? Mine split because Bran held too long. Menin. The silence that followed slithered across stone walls. Sansa turned toward the window facing the godswood. The great heart tree's crimson leaves stirred in a breeze that did not reach her cheek. Send riders, she said after a moment. Voice resolved. Quiet ones. Tell them to track the dragon if it crosses the neck. If Bran returns, I want him brought to this hall at once. We must understand. Davos hesitated. And if he doesn't return? Or worse, if the dragon lands here with other intentions? Nain. Sansa's eyes glittered. Then Winterfell's walls will test legendary flame. She inhaled. Pray it does not come to that. On the city's southern fringe, where the dragon pit perched in its ravaged amphitheater, Ser Jorah Mormont's old cloak lay beneath rubble like a buried flag. Only tattered gray edges showed, stirring when wind turned hot. There, amid the crumbled stands, hundreds of small folk huddled. Davos Seaworth knelt by a ring of the injured, binding a woman's thigh wound with linen torn from his own sleeve. Dead limbs lay beyond. Whispers of infection already slithered through ranks. Water barrels scraped dry. In corners, children buried faces against ragged gowns to escape the smell of cooked flesh drifting on breeze. Yet, for all their misery, the refugees watched the sky with a curious hope each time Drogon's silhouette swept overhead. More than one whispered that the dragon, curse its mother though they might, had shielded them by some strange turn. A rumor blossomed that old magic guided its wings, that gods or ghost kings rode upon its back. Some swore they saw a shadowy pair of antlers sprout above the beast's brow, sign of the old stag king's spirit. Others, that a pale wolf clung to its tail, symbolism rich enough to feed fear and faith in equal measure. Davos listened in silence. He had seen men cling to rumors like driftwood on open sea. Sometimes such driftwood kept them afloat. Sometimes it dragged them under heavier storms. His duty now, self-appointed, was to see that hope did not tip into reckless belief. When the wound on the woman's thigh stopped bleeding, he squeezed her shoulder, offering a half smile. "We'll get you real bandages soon." The Unsullied posted a cart of supplies near the city gate. He excused himself and strode toward the edge of the pit where the rim still stood intact. Climbing rubble, he gained a vantage to scan the horizon. Smoke thinned as dawn brightened. New colors painted the sky: rose gold, ash lavender. And there, distant and shrinking, the dragon headed north, wings rhythmic, queen still aboard. Davos exhaled through his nose. "Storms come from the north," he muttered, "even when they wear scales." He turned back to the pit. Below, Jon and Tyrion led more survivors through a shattered arch. Jon carried the little girl now sleeping against his chest, her fist knotted in his collar. Tyrion shepherded a limping old man, whose cane had cracked in half. Davos' heart tugged. These were good men trapped in impossible geometry of loyalty, love, crime, and mercy. And above them all the shape of Bran Stark, intangible yet weighty, like a giant's hand pressing pieces across a board. Davos descended, boots crunching glass. When he reached the newcomers, Tyrion's eyes fixed upon him. "Tell me the truth, Davos. If that dragon leaves the city for good, do we stand any chance of holding what's left against the remaining legions?" "Nair," Davos considered. "Depends who claims command." His gaze flicked at Jon, whose eyes remained on the sleeping child. "Better question is, who will follow whom?" Tyrion's mouth twitched in bitter humor. "I fear none will follow me, except to the noose. And Jon." He hesitated, then whispered, "You've seen how the men look at him. Half think he betrayed the North by backing Daenerys. Half think he is the one true heir to the Iron Throne. When word of this horror spreads..." Jon looked up. "There is no throne," he said quietly. "They melted it." Memory flashed. Drogon's last burst of flame, steel running like candle wax, the symbol of 7 kingdoms slumping into slag. "Let them chase shadows. We need to save lives, that's all." Tyrion's gaze traveled unwittingly to ghost-licking blood from a torn paw. "People often prefer shadows to wounds, my friend." He sighed. "But perhaps saving lives will yet give us more to rule than bones." Davos interrupted. "We must speak of Bran. If he truly rides that dragon, maybe he means to carry Daenerys somewhere safe, until her fury cools. Or until he can reason with her," Tyrion added. "Persuade her there is another path." Jon made an involuntary sound, a short, scuffing breath. "She listens to no one now, not even herself." He shifted the sleeping girl to one arm. "I pray Bran doesn't pay for stealing her fire." "Another path exists," Davos said, voice low. "One you want like. One you've avoided even speaking aloud." Jon's shoulders stiffened. "I won't kill her. You may not get the choice." Tyrion warned softly. "If Bran loses his grip, and Drogon returns to burn the rest." Jon shook his head violently. "Enough." Davos reached out, resting a steadying hand on Jon's arm. "We're all tired. Not all choices come at sword point. Some require standing a long vigil over ruins." Jon's eyes dropped to the small child in his grasp. I'll stand 1,000 vigils if it spares one more like her. He turned away, carrying her toward the makeshift infirmary where blankets lay. Ghost limped behind. Tyrion's shoulders sagged as though invisible chains hung from them. Davos cleared his throat. We'll need water. Food, discipline or chaos will finish the city faster than flame. He stepped after Jon, calling for volunteers. Alone but for the echo of his thoughts, Tyrion tilted his face to the brightening sky. Drogon was gone from sight. On the wind he thought he heard distant bells. No, only memory of bells, now forever tolling inside his skull. He shuddered, closed eyes, and breathed the smoke that smelled of endings and beginnings alike. Bran Stark woke for the second time that morning with frost on his lashes. He had dozed in his chair beneath the heart tree, mind battered like a door in winter storm. The weirwood's face loomed above, red eyes dripping sap. Those eyes had seen all, yet not even God's wood whisper could foretell the tangle of time his own choices wove. His head ached. It took effort to focus on present world, to remember he possessed limbs, albeit useless. Summer light spilled through leaves. Somewhere, Piper's thrush sang. In the courtyard below, soldiers drilled. Steel rang dull on practice posts. All normal, reassuringly mundane. He felt it fragile as eggshell. He did not regret influencing Drogon. Many more would have died had fire raged unchecked. Yet as Drogon banked north, he had sensed Daenerys' mounting terror. A wild creature senses cage closing, the walls are unseen. Terror births desperation. Desperation births atrocity. Bran feared what new path he had ignited. Footsteps approached. He read the gate before the man emerged. Heavy-booted, measured pace, the weight of duty in each soul. Sir Podrick Payne appeared, brow knitted beneath helm he wore too low. "Your Grace," he said, voice little more than a mumble, though titled with respect that felt alien upon Bran's ears. "Lady Sansa asks if you join the council." Urgent word of a dragon. Bran's mouth ticked. "I know," he said simply. "I will come." Podrick hesitated, then leaned closer. "Is it true, Your Grace? Some say you sit its mind like a man sits a horse. Some say you turned its fire aside." Bran's gaze drifted to the horizon. "Truth is many-headed, Sir Podrick, like dragons." He let the words hang, oddly gentle. "Questions will be answered. Not all, but enough." "Badur." Podrick swallowed, nodded. "I'll ready a litter." He retreated. Bran's sight lingered on sky where ravens still circled. One swooped to perch upon his wheel, spoke and cocked an inquisitive head. He brushed its mind, a slight touch. "Old friend," and tasted the world's electric hush. In hundreds of leagues of sky there flew one enormous shape, black wings beating, carrying rage and prophecy north. Bran felt it still, faint as candle at the edge of sleep. The dragon's pulse now interwoven with cold whispers of weirwood memory. The seed he had planted, whether that seed would bloom life or death. On that hinge all tomorrows turned. Bran sighed, and for first time felt the weight not of throne or crown, but of gardener tools, shears grown heavy in his hands. He set his jaw. He would not let the garden burn. Daenerys felt Drogon's pitch change, no longer a straight path but a gradual descent. Spiral wide over rolling highlands freckled by stands of pine. She recognized the geography with a jolt, the southern reaches of the neck. Low mists clung to boggy flats, and serpentine rivers glinted beneath morning light. Ahead, a crag of rock jutted from green marshland, atop which perched ruins of Moat Cailin, ancient fortress whose towers leaned like broken teeth. She cursed under her breath. Was this Bran's aim? Fly her into the North's throat where Stark archers waited. Drogon gave a deep chest rumble, a sound she once interpreted as predatory satisfaction, but now sensed as something nearer to contemplation. He banked again, wings flaring to catch rising air, angled toward a broad stretch of marsh that steamed under sunlight. Frogs chirred. A herd of wild goats scattered in white panic as the shadow passed. She clutched Dragonhide, mind racing. If the boy wanted her captive, perhaps he expected northern bannermen to greet her in chains. She would rather dive into marsh and drown than bend knee, to those who would brand her kinslayer. She loosened grip on saddle spikes, testing distance to ground. Too high. Wind roared. Even if she leapt and survived broken bones in the bog, she would be hunted. And Drogon? Could she bear to leave him? Another thought bloomed. Do not flee. Retake him. She steadied breathing, slowed heartbeat. A dragon's mind, she knew, responded to clear images, to sensation. She closed eyes, envisioned first meal after hatching. Warm lamb's blood on hatchling tongue, her hands stroking charred shell away, her voice crooning Valyrian lullaby. She reached now for that warmth, fed it down arms into Drogon's spine. Remember me, you belong to me, we are fire made flesh. Drogon's flight stuttered. Wings flapped erratic. Banking left, then right. Daenerys pressed deeper. She conjured blood spilled at Astapor, the sunlight on narrow sea wind when he first carried her. She reminded him of chains broken, of freedom bought by flame. She willed memory like a tidal surge, smashing against cold barrier she sensed. The barrier thinned. Drogon's head jerked. A gout of smoke burst from nostrils. Below, a marshy copse erupted as stray sparks fell, igniting dry reeds. It worked. She felt surge of ancient wild fury flooding veins. Then just as quickly, the cold seeped back, not as wall, but as tide washing high, burying warmth under silt. It carried scents of pine resin and frozen river, the hush of snowfall clinging to evergreen needles. Drogon's body settled, wings steady. Fire retreated. Daenerys gasped, tears stinging eyes. Half sob, half growl. Damn you, Stark. She looked ahead. The dragon angled now toward a small rocky rise, crowned by stunted alder and white-barked birch. No banners fluttered, no men waited. Only a solitary weirwood half-grown but unmistakable, its red leaves like drops of blood against pale sky. The wind shifted. Drogon slowed, descending toward the clearing at the tree's base. Daenerys tensed. She would not be delivered like parcel to some ghost tree. As claws met earth, the dragon folded wings and settled with a low chuff. Daenerys swung off, landed with warrior's grace despite exhaustion. Boots sank into moss. She drew the short dragonglass dagger she wore at belt. Drogon watched, expression unreadable, embers crackling between teeth. Dead silence lay over the clearing, punctuated only by a drip of water from some unseen spring. She scanned gloom between trunks. No soldiers, no cripple in a chair. Only the weirwood regarding her with bloody eyes. What now? She spat, voice echoing. Are you here, Bran? Show yourself if you dare. D'Antoni? Wind rustled leaves. In their subtle hiss, she almost fancied she heard words, but they were either nonsense or just heartbeat roaring in her ears. She stalked to the weirwood, hand tracing its carved face. Hollow eyes, wide mouth, sap welled in fissures, thicker than tears, red as a half-healed wound. She wiped fingers on tunic, turned back to dragon. Drogon lay coiled, wings cloaked. His gaze tracked her, but no aggression radiated. If anything, a watchfulness unlike beast. She paced before him, dagger glinting. Will you not even answer me with flame? She demanded. Have you forgotten your blood? A flicker of ember lit his nostrils, but he held. Daenerys felt rage crumble to raw despair. She dropped dagger, pressed both palms to Drogon's cheek, hot scale rough against skin. Come back, she whispered, voice breaking. I need you. You're all I have left. The dragon inhaled slowly. A tremor rocked muscles beneath hide. His head dipped slightly, jaw brushing her shoulder. She imagined a purr, but the sound was more like distant thunder. Tears fell unbidden, streaking ash on her cheeks. Somewhere far off crows cawed. A ripple passed through weirwood leaves. The world seemed to turn on a quiet hinge. In that lull, Daenerys became acutely aware of her own heartbeat, of Drogon's heart thudding like siege drums, of the deep pulse of land beneath boot leather. It felt as though every living thing held threads to a single center. And she, too, was tethered, caught in cosmic loom. She lifted gaze to forest canopy and almost believed she saw faces flicker in morning rays. Her breath hitched. Enough. She shook head, No ghost kings, no old gods, she muttered. I ride the living. She leaned close, pressed forehead to Drogon's brow. Remember who freed you from stone. Remember your mother. A long sigh left dragon lungs, a hot gust that rustled her hair. Eyes the color of molten rubies blinked slow. She could not be sure, but something softened there. Something that might be recognition, or sorrow. Then Drogon's massive chest expanded. Flame flickered behind teeth. Daenerys braced, unsure if it would come forth to engulf her, or spring skyward. The jaws opened wider. But he only exhaled smoke, gray and harmless, rising in lazy spiral toward dawn. As if to say, not yet. Daenerys stepped back, legs weak. She retrieved dagger, weighing it in palm. Resolve warred with fatigue. She considered slashing a gash across her palm, letting blood fall upon soil, invoking old rites of binding, but some instinct warned that such magic, if it existed, might tighten net around them both rather than cut through. She sheathed blade. She surveyed the clearing again. Beyond the weirwood, through thin mist, she glimpsed stone markers, ancient, half sunk into bog. She recognized first men's runes. A sacred place. She would not defile ground of old gods by spilling blood in rage. Not while child of Valyria, now bred with their power. Rage must be tempered into sword of ice and fire both, else it would shatter. She inhaled, exhaled. Fine, she told the air, voice steadying. If you want diplomacy, I will give you diplomacy. Let us talk. Her gaze swept clearing. But know this, I am not your puppet. I choose my own fate, and if you threaten that, I will burn every tree from here to Bear Island. A breeze rustled again, but no voice answered. Yet Drogon's head lifted, nostrils sampling wind, as though message carried on scent. After a beat he rose, wings stretching, blanketing her in shadow. She stepped aside, wary. He walked toward edge of clearing, tail carving furrows in moss, then paused, looking back. Do you want me to follow? She asked. One beat of heavy tail on earth, thud, sent birds shrieking from branches. Then he continued into trees, ducking beneath low boughs with improbable grace. Daenerys retrieved dagger once more and followed. They moved single file, her boots squelching, his claws crunching twigs. The forest opened onto narrow causeway of ancient basalt stones crossing marsh, dotted with pools reflecting sky. Beyond, she saw the leaning ruins of Moat Cailin proper, banners of House Glover, and reed fluttering faint at rampart. No horns blew. Soldiers atop watchtowers watched Dragon approach with spears lowered, but did not loose arrows. Drogon halted halfway down causeway. Daenerys frowned, stepped beside him. From rampart, two figures began descending crooked stair to meet them. Even at distance, Daenerys recognized them. Meera Reed, spear strapped across back, and her father, Lord Howland, the man said to have witnessed the Tower of Joy. A chill ran down her spine. The Reeds were rumored half-children of the forest, close to deep magic. They reached causeway's end, halting a safe span away. Meera's eyes traveled from dragon to queen. She bowed. A small dip of head. Your Grace, she said. Daenerys inclined chin. Lady Reed. I did not expect reception. Howland Reed's lined face held sadness. We did not expect a dragon. Yet our gray water paths whispered one would come carrying storm inside. Bats. Daenerys squared shoulders. I need to speak with the three-eyed raven. Reed nodded. My messenger ravens carry word to Winterfell. Your wish will be granted. He stepped aside, gestured to ruin behind him. Rest. Food can be prepared. His gaze flicked to the dragon. The beast may feed on goats roaming north slope. A spark of suspicion flared. You do not fear fire? We fear many things, Meera answered. But fear is no shield. Only choice is shield. Daenerys considered. She glanced at Drogon. He remained statue still, save for occasional flick of forked tongue tasting sense. At last she sheathed dagger, exhaled. Very well. She looked Meera in eye. Send your bird. Tell Bran Stark his queen comes not as enemy, but to reclaim what was never his. Mira inclined head again. The boy who has many eyes will welcome truth. Daenerys doubted that. Yet she followed them across worn causeway, Drogon lumbering after. The marsh hissed under morning heat, dragon steam rising. High above, a single raven circled, then shot north like arrow. In King's Landing, the sun cleared horizon. Bells lay cracked on sept floor. Smoke still rose, but wind shifted west, blowing stench away. The day would be hotter than any in recent memory, though not by dragon's cause alone. Inside the Dragon Pit infirmary, Jon Snow knelt by rows of wounded. He poured thin water over a boy's burned arm, wrapped it in linen. The boy never made sound. Jon whispered, "You're strong," then moved to next. Tyrion paced nearby, mind working. He had dispatched ravens to every lord in reach. Urgent convening at Dragon Pit to discuss governance and relief. He knew half might ignore. Half might seize moment to claim crowns. But he also knew a vacuum bred only chaos, and chaos would bury them. He looked east where harbor lay. The sea shimmered. Among charred masts, the hulk of flagship Silence rolled. Broken, but afloat. He wondered what tales Euron's drowned corpse might tell in the depths. He wondered how many ghosts would rise tonight to haunt those still breathing. Footsteps approached. Davos returned, wiping sweat. Found a cache of grain in sealed cellar near Street of Sisters. Untouched by fire. Enough for 3 days if rationed tight. He drank from wineskin. Also found 40 barrels fresh from Storm's End, shipment never unloaded. Storm's End, Tyrion said softly. Gendry's seat now. Baratheon bastards rise like weeds. Aye, let 'em, Davos muttered. We need all weeds. He sobered. Any word of Daenerys? Gone north, Tyrion replied. Too far for eyes. Davos scratched beard. North is large place. If she returns with dragon under her command. Tyrion nodded, finishing the thought, neither spoke aloud. They turned as Ghost padded from infirmary. The direwolf lifted snout, sniffed wind coming off water. His ears pricked. A low woof left his throat. Half greeting, half warning. Tyrion followed gaze. A column of mounted soldiers, armor pewter, cloaks green, Tyrell stragglers, rode through Gate of the Gods. At their head rode Garland Tyrell, face stern. He raised a gauntleted fist, halting at pit's edge. His eyes took ruin in, jaw tightening. Tyrion sighed. Lions, wolves, roses, dragons. Soon every beast will gather here to pick bones. Davos clapped shoulder. Then let's teach them to share. Have you ever met a beast that shares? Tyrion asked. Yes, Davos said, nodding toward Ghost, who nuzzled the hand of a wounded girl. Some beasts learn. Tyrion watched Direwolf's gentle snout, felt something soften inside sternum. Let us hope men can be as wise as wolves. He squared shoulders, stepped to greet Garland with open palms. Show strength, show peace. As he walked, he glanced skyward. For the first time in days, he saw only blue sky. Yet he could not rid mind of winged shadow memory. Somewhere up there, destinies circled each other like raptors. Soon they would stoop. He vowed when they did, he would not be found idly beneath. The Raven reached Winterfell by midday. Sansa received message, broke seal, read. Her pulse stuttered. Daenerys under Reed hospitality. Requests parley. Bran listened in silence, face unreadable. After long beat, he said, Send word she is welcome, under guest right. No harm shall come. Arya bristled. She burned a city. Bran's gaze turned distant. She may yet burn more, or she may not. Threads twist. Sansa exchanged glance with Davos. And the dragon? Bran's lip curved. A brittle echo of smile. The dragon remembers snow. That is enough. Outside the hall, ravens wheeled, drifting on unseen eddies. Farther north, dairy wolves howled across dusk forests. And between sky and earth, a queen trudged marsh road toward Winterfell. Her shadow a long lance on dragon-haunted land. The weight of broken crowns upon her shoulders. The wheel turned. Not ended, not broken. Changing shape, perhaps, into something none yet named. But beneath its relentless creak walked those who still dared hope mercy might be forged anew in heart of frost and flame. If only they could keep the fire from devouring the snow, and the snow from quenching the fire, long enough for spring to bloom. And so, as sun dipped west and gray evening seeds scattered on wind, the greatest powers of ice and fire marched upon one another, not with armies clashing, but with wounds still bleeding and hearts uncertain. Each carried ghosts, yet each carried glints of future undreamed. In that fragile space where snowflakes kiss embers without hissing to steam, a new story waited to ignite or to thaw. Bran watched from ramparts as night fell, sensing queen and dragon drawn closer by invisible cords. He closed eyes, inhaled cool air, and whispered a prayer neither old gods nor new. Let courage temper wrath. Let compassion outlast grief. Then he opened them, and the first star of evening flared above, like a distant torch, guiding two seekers toward crossroads no prophecy had dared script. The wind shifted, bringing faint scent of marsh and ash. Bran tasted it, knew the hour neared. He wheeled chair down corridor toward Great Hall. Behind him, ravens leapt skyward in sudden flurry, black wings beating north, south, east, bearing witness at world's hinge. Night had come, but dawn would follow. Whether dawn revealed flowering field or smoldering ruin depended on hearts soon to meet beneath carved rafters of Winterfell, a place where roots ran deep and old magic listened. For in the end it was not crowns or dragons that shaped ages, but the quiet choices made in halls of wood and stone, choices quivering now like arrow on string. Bran rolled forward, unafraid, carrying inside him the memory of fire restrained, of snow unbroken, and of one singular truth, that in the weave of every endless winter and every raging summer, there lay a moment when even dragons paused to listen to falling leaves. And then, crimson dusk seeped through the broken slats of the western sky, when Daenerys Targaryen at last climbed the slope beneath Winterfell's outer wall, her boots sinking into half-frozen loam where early summer chill lingered like a spell. The long ride from Moat Cailin had worn the marchers raw, 2 days over bog and flooded track, men knee-deep in mire, women leading skinny horses past sucking pools that tried to swallow hooves whole. But the queen never slackened pace. She walked at Drogon's shoulder, one hand upon the dragon's warm flank, silver gold hair hidden beneath a hood the color of soot, so as not to blind watchers on the parapets. Only her eyes marked her royalty now, and those eyes burned less with wrath than with a feverish resolve that frightened even those sworn to her. Grey Worm padded near her left, helm under one arm, spear upright, but pointed downward in token of peace. His gaze raked battlements constantly, missing no murder hole. Behind him marched fewer than 200 unsullied, shields painted midnight, spears slanted over shoulders in perfect cadence. A stream of refugees trailed on wagons. Fishermen from the Neck, hill clans from the Barrowlands, river shepherds who'd begged escort after word spread that the Dragon Queen traveled north under Stark invitation. Some bore crude banners of surrender, others clutched torn scraps of family cloth, symbols of lives uprooted by fire and rumor alike. Above, Winterfell's towers loomed dark against deepening red. Torches guttered along parapets, casting restless gold that made the stone appear to breathe. The great iron-bound gate stood closed, but on the rampart above it, Sansa Stark waited, flanked by Sir Davos Seaworth, Brienne of Tarth, and Maester Wolkan. Snow flurried fitfully, though the sky promised no storm. A hush held the air, broken only by the low clink of unsullied mail and the occasional hiss of steam when Drogon's breath met cold. When the queen reached the gate's shadow, she halted, lifted her head, and drew back her hood. Whispers rustled through the northerners posted on the wall. They looked for madness in her features, but saw instead a woman carved of sleepless stone. Her voice projected clear. Daenerys Stormborn of House Targaryen comes under guest right, as invited by Lord Bran Stark of Winterfell. I seek audience. Namaraden. Sansa's hands rested upon the worn merlons, knuckles white in torchlight. The boy you know as Lord has taken counsel with the Weirwood, she replied. He will receive you in the Godswood. Your army will camp beyond the third trench until dawn. Only 12 may pass the gate with you, unarmed." "Unarmed," Grey Worm repeated, stiff with offense. Daenerys lifted a palm, silencing him. "Done," she called. "My dragon must remain within bowshot of me." Sansa's mouth hardened. "If your dragon crosses inside the inner bailey, our scorpions loose. Guessed right or none." Daenerys swallowed a bitter retort. "Drogon shall perch in the Godswood clearing. You have my word." Sansa gave a curt nod. She turned, and horns sounded. Chains rattled as gate bars lifted. The great oak halves groaned apart, revealing a corridor of spears. Northern guards arrayed on either side, faces half-masked in mail. Their wariness reeked like smoke. Daenerys motioned Grey Worm, Missandei's brother Meru, and 10 unsullied to follow. She unbuckled her sword, placed it in a velvet satchel offered by Mira Reed, who had ridden north ahead of her. Grey Worm did likewise after a tense heartbeat. The unsullied laid spears on the ground, trusting no one but obeying her nod. Dragon-scaled dagger sheathed at her thigh remained, unnoticed beneath folds. One concession to fate she would not relinquish. Behind, Drogon crouched low outside the trench. Wings folded, claws digging into frost-crusted earth. His eyes glinted pewter in torchlight, watching the men on scorpions track every twitch. He rumbled once, a sound between purr and distant avalanche. The queen pressed her hand to his jaw hinge. "Wait," she whispered in Valyrian. "I will return." Drogon's eyelids drooped, but he did not lie down. When the column stepped through the gate, he swung his head to keep her in sight, tail flicking sparks of soil with each impatient lash. The gate groaned shut behind them, and Daenerys found herself within Winterfell's courtyard. Its stones damp, flagged with ancient cracks, stained by decades of hoof and boot. She had stood here months ago as conqueror by alliance. The air smelled different now, like judgment held on knife point. Northerners watched from door arches, fingers wrapped round axes. Among them Daenerys saw specks of compassion, women clasping toddlers who stared wide-eyed at unsullied helmets, stable boys craning to glimpse the living dragon through gate slits. But suspicion overshadowed all. She felt the weight of every burned corpse in King's Landing pressing down. She held her chin high, schooling breath, reminding herself that dragons do not bow to wolves. Yet she had come for parley, not conquest. That word tasted alien on her tongue but held hope. So Davos stepped forward, dipping head. "Your Grace." He gestured. "This way." They crossed under the quivering green arches of the Godswood tunnel. Torches bobbing. Pine needles crunched cold. The leaves of the heart tree glared crimson. Candle lamps banked round its bowl painted the glade in warm flicker, but no warmth touched Daenerys' skin. Bran Stark sat in his wheeled chair at the base of the trunk. White cloak about narrow shoulders, eyes reflecting torchlight like pools of moonlit water. Beside him perched a raven, feathers slick black. Brienne stood at Bran's right hand, sword unsheathed, but point resting on boot. Podrick lingered nearby, crossbow slung. The hush swallowed footfalls so fully that breathing alone seemed sacrilege. Daenerys stopped 10 paces from Bran. Grey Worm and the Unsullied arrayed behind her like silent pillars. She regarded the boy who had bent her dragon. He looked unchanged, yet she sensed a vastness behind those eyes. A night sky crowded with stars beyond counting. Bran's voice floated across frost. "Welcome to Winterfell, Daenerys of House Targaryen." She inclined head. "Lord Stark, you summoned me without word. You robbed me of my dragon's will. We have much to discuss." Her words carried no accusation. Only stark truth honed to razor. "I guided," Bran corrected, "to preserve life. I did not steal." Daenerys' jaw clenched. "Guided him against my command, against the sacred bond of rider and mount." Bran studied her a long moment. "You commanded fire on children. They were pawns held hostage by Cersei's rule." She felt Grey Worm tense behind. She steadied voice. "War cannot be bloodless. War chooses casualties," Bran said. "But a queen chooses war." His tone held no condemnation, only observation. I saw the moment rage devoured grief inside you. I saw the instant mercy ceased. Had Drogon continued, every soul in King's Landing would be ash. She folded arms to still trembling. You presume to judge me. I do not judge, Bran replied. I remember. The Weirwoods remember. I did what was required to stop endless vengeance. He gestured lightly. You stand here alive, among those you feared. He tilted head. What will you do with that breath? The question sliced deeper than accusation. She pictured Jon's face in the throne room pleading, Tyrion's betrayal, Missandei's severed head, bells tolling like laughter. Fire roared in her skull then, but now, only embers glowed. She inhaled, tasting pine resin. I came to reclaim what is mine, she said quietly. My dragon, my destiny. Bran's hands rested on chair arms. And if destiny stands astride 1,000 corpses, will you still claim it? Grey Worm stepped forward, voice brittle. She is queen. You speak treason. Damni Salwyn. Brienne's sword lifted from boot, point rising. Podrick's crossbow came level. Northern guards behind trees slid arrows from quivers. Grey Worm froze, weighing odds. Bran lifted a hand. Silence thickened again. No blood, he said. Brienne sheathed his sword part way. Arrows eased. Daenerys closed eyes a heartbeat, mastering tempest inside. When she met Bran's gaze again, her voice lowered. I lost everything. Father, mother, brothers, unborn child, dragons, loved ones, counselors. Power is all that kept me alive. All that promises change. If I relinquish power, what remains? Daustos. Bran's head tilted, as though listening to wind. Power, untempered, ends alone. But what if you shared it? A faint scoff escaped. With whom? Those who fear the Dragon Queen, or those who would crown themselves upon my ashes? She shook head. Men pledge loyalty until I falter. Then they call me mad. From the shadows emerged Jon Snow, silent until then. He had followed at distance, unseen by her until now. His cloak mottled with camp dust. Ghost padded at heel, ears flattened. His eyes met hers, sorrowful and stubborn. Not all men, he said. Daenerys' throat tightened. Memory surged, Dragonstone balcony, cave beneath cliffs, battlefield ashes swirling around white corpse. Betrayal overshadowed each, yet some gentler chord still thrummed. She forced it quiet. You bent the knee, then turned your back. I bent the knee to hope, Jon answered. Hope died in fire that day. His voice cracked. But hope can be born again. Daenerys stepped back a pace, as though struck. Easy words from one not hunted by prophecy. Jon opened mouth, but Bran interrupted. Prophecy is wind. Choices root. Daenerys laughed brittle. Easy for a boy bound to a chair. You cannot know what it is to hold legacies on fingertips. Bran's voice grew so low she had to lean. I felt dragon flames scorch skin through Drogon's eyes. I know the terror of being weapon. I know too the calm of choosing restraint. The glade seemed to breathe in unison. Trees, torches, hearts. In the hovering stillness, Daenerys sensed again that winter hush she'd tasted through Drogon. The weightless moment before a snowflake lands. Power, yes, but also stillness. Her shoulders sagged. What do you want of me? Bran looked past her to Grey Worm, to Unsullied, to torchlit pines. I want no throne. I want future to hold more than ruin. Lay down vengeance. Share governance. Accept judgment for death's cost. Grey Worm bristled. We will not surrender our queen. Jon moved forward, addressing the Unsullied commander. Grey Worm, she will not be harmed, but the realm must see atonement. I'll stand with her. Daenerys glared. Stand beside or stand against? Choose. Jon's reply caught in throat. Bran's raven flapped, settling again. Bran spoke. There is a path. Not surrender, not conquest, union. Put aside titles for council. You and the North each hold power none can deny. Sit in Council of Regents. Stark, Targaryen, Baratheon, Tyrell, Martell, Greyjoy. Rule by accord until realm healed. Beneprancy. Daenerys folded arms weighing. Shared rule. 6 seats possible. Yet, would Westeros abide? Would Dothraki? She thought of unsullied discipline, of broken khalasars adrift. She envisioned a council house where each voice mattered. Dream teased her heart like first song of spring. But ashes crowded memory. They will never forgive the fires, she whispered. Forgiveness grows on soil of remorse, Bran said. Plant it. Grey Worm's jaw hardened. Unsullied avenge those slain at Meereen and Astapor. They will not kneel to northern dogs. Brienne's sword slid half out again. Tension crackled. Daenerys raised hand. Enough. She looked to Bran. If I agree to counsel, what of my fate? Will I be tried, imprisoned? The realm will judge, Bran answered. By what court? The lords will hang me before hearing plea. Not if they must hang dragons beside, Bran murmured. She glanced through trees where torchlight flickered off black scale silhouettes. Drogon had crept close beyond wall, head visible through gap. Even silent, his presence weighed heavy. Perhaps council feared provoking him again. Her pulse raced. Council, remorse, rebuilding? Were these tasks lesser than conquest? Or greater? She thought of Missandei's last word. Dracarys. Was this betrayal of that plea? Or fulfillment, fire not on flesh but on chains of hate? Jon stepped closer, lowering voice. I once said you are my queen. I believe still you can be the people's queen, if you choose the people. Memdepfeperon. His earnestness dug beneath grief. Tears threatened. She willed them back. If I stand judgment, I stand it with you beside me, she whispered. Swear it. He knelt, a deliberate echo of snow-covered battlefield. I swear, by ice and fire both. Daenerys looked to Bran. I will speak before your lords. I will accept council rule until new order forged. But Drogon remains free. No chain, no scorpion. Agreed, Bran said, and the weirwood leaves rustled like applause. Grey Worm exhaled fury but bowed head to her. He would obey. Bran turned to Sansa at edge of glade. Send ravens. Assembly at Winterfell in 7 days. All houses. Tell them the Dragon Queen seeks atonement and alliance. Sansa's lips tightened. Yet she nodded. They will come. For once, she added, fear might serve. Daenerys sensed weariness inside, but also something like relief. A terrible burden set down. She wondered if justice awaited rope round her neck, or if history might yet carve a gentler statue. Either path, she would walk it awake, not in wrath's dream. She bowed, small but sincere. Bran dipped chin, wheels shifting as Brienne rolled him back from route. Torches flickered. The Unsullied retrieved spears, still wary, but unblooded. Drogon watched, eyes narrowing as if measuring truth of all mortal words. In the days that followed, Winterfell swelled beyond any memory. Lines of tents sprouted over fields south and east, banners of great and lesser houses snapping. The crowned stag of Storm's End, winged horse of Arryn, green kraken of Roderick Greyjoy, sun spear Martell, whisked north by Prince Quentyn. Ships anchored off White Harbor disgorged Tyrell vessels, flying new golden rose on emerald. From west rode Lady Winifred Manderly with wagons of salt cod. From east the tall sellsword Jaqo Khan, bearing credentials on behalf of khalasar fragment loyal still to the Dragon Queen. From Dorne arrived Nymeria Sand as envoy for ill Prince Rhanin, who had survived Euron's fleet. The Riverlands sent Edmure Tully, leaner after years of Frey captivity, his son clinging shy to saddle. The Vale's men escorted young Lord Robin Arryn, taller but still wide-eyed. They camped under watch of archers on ramparts. Grievances crackled like kindling in the crisp air. Many small folk huddled along trench fringes, drawn by rumors that food and justice awaited. Wintertown strained, But Lady Sansa opened granaries, instructing lords to tithe grain or forfeit seat at council. In distant sky, Drogon patrolled slow circuits, his black shadow reminding all that Parley wore fire's cloak. Each morning he drank from the lake beyond new weirwood saplings. Each evening he perched on Godswood Ridge, far from scorpions but close enough that catapults lacked vantage. His calm unsettled bowmen more than rage. An enemy containing his flame is an enemy planning, they muttered. Inside Winterfell, Daenerys remained under guest right in a tower chamber, overlooking courtyard. Guards posted outside were Stark men, not unsullied, but they carried no chains. She moved freely within wall, though always shadowed by Brienne or Sir Davos. She spoke little, spent hours at window, watching droves gather and wagons shuttling wounded children to field surgeons, refugees from King's Landing whom Davos had escorted north. More arrived daily, ashes still matted in hair. Daenerys asked to help treat them. Sansa allowed, and there among cots she found purpose in small gestures, washing wounds, fetching water, singing Valyrian lullabies to ease night terrors. At first the refugees recoiled when they learned her name, but grief can tire hatred. Some later clasped her hand whispering, "Dragon Lady," with uncertain gratitude. She wept alone afterward, unsure if their acceptance absolved anything. Grey Worm drilled unsullied on northern field, spears flashing like winter sun. Garland Tyrell inspected ranks with professional nod. He had fought alongside Golden Rose phalanx at Highgarden before capitulation. Though wary, he saw discipline useful and offered training exchange. Unsullied, accepted silent. Slowly green cloaks mingled with midnight blue, practicing shield walls that neither had used before. Jon patrolled both camps, bridging tensions with weary patience. He met Quentyn Martell, under Martell's sundrape, to discuss Dornish refusal to kneel. "No thrones left to kneel to," Quentyn remarked. "We kneel to peace if fair." Jon agreed. They shared lemons preserved in honey, Ghost devoured peel. Tyrion arrived last, limping through snow with Bran and a thin retinue of city guard survivors. He'd remained in King's Landing to build a provisional council of masons and healers, leaving it to hold until new rules set. He hugged Bran gently, exchanged stiff greetings with Sansa, bowed to Daenerys. For a moment they stared, her eyes wet, his haunted. He said only, "We are both alive. Let us use it wisely." She nodded once, lips trembling. 7 days passed like rope tightening. At dawn of the 8th day, horns summoned all banners to Winterfell's great hall. Benches removed. A circle of chairs sat round hearth. Bran's wheeled seat at North Point, Daenerys at South. Other houses arrayed clockwise by signal fires drawn lots to avoid squabbles. Snow drifted from open roof vents where ravens nested unseen. Fires roared. Courtiers packed gallery rails. Outside, thousands waited, listening for shouts. Bran began with quiet. "We meet to forge realm anew." He invited each lord to speak grievances and visions. Edmure Tully recounted Red Keep massacre. Garland Tyrell decried burning of bread wagons. Winifred Manderly spoke for small folk stuffed into holdfasts. Every tale piled cinder on Daenerys' conscience. She sat still, face drained, absorbing each. At midday Bran turned to her. "You have heard." Murmurs fell. Daenerys rose, trembling but loud. "I am Daenerys, daughter of kings, breaker of chains, and I bear chains yet. I cannot bring dead to life. I cannot rebuild hearts burnt. I can choose now to lay down sword." She inhaled, hoarse. "I swear before North and gods old and new to accept council rule. I will not seek sole throne. I will not dragon's fire only at unanimous consent of council. For enemy of realm, not for conquest. I will submit myself to judgment and restitution as council deems." Garland Tyrell leapt to feet. "And the thousands dead? Their justice?" Daenerys' steadied voice. "Set reparations. I will melt crown jewels of red, keep for rebuilding. Dragonstone's mines are yours to charter. Let their tribute feed orphans." Quentyn Martell asked, "What of Targaryen loyalists who still riot in Stormlands?" Will you command them to stand down? Demisten. I will, she said. More demands rose. She answered each with concession or plan. Some lords remained skeptical, but Bran's gaze pinned them with quiet power. In the hush, after final question, he spoke. The realm has bled. Blood cries for blood, but cannot drink its own revenge. I propose this. Daenerys Targaryen shall serve as co-regent for 5 years under oversight. Should she break oath, any house may withdraw and war again, with Dragon facing all realm. Should she keep oath, after 5 years council may elect governance anew. Monarch, Republic, or League? Main. A roar of debate followed. Robin Arryn found courage to chirp support. Theon's sister Asha, newly arrived, argued for autonomy of Iron Islands. Garland disliked indefinite council but accepted 5-year term. Tyrion recommended building civil code to codify roles. Davos insisted small folk seats be reserved. Slowly, agreement coalesced. Only Grey Worm stood stony. Who judges murderers of unsullied enslaved in Slaver's Bay? Who punishes those who spat on their corpses? A hush. Daenerys answered, Their blood is on me. I vow to found sanctuary for freedmen and fund their travel home. Unsullied may steward it. Grey Worm's stern mask cracked a hair. He bowed head. The council took vote. Aye, until only zealous Bar Emmon of Sharp Point remained dissenting. He folded arms, glared at Daenerys. Targaryen flame killed my heir in Stepstone's skirmish. I vote nay. Bran's eyes flickered white, warg sight. He spoke, voice distant. Your heir died of fever on Lys night before skirmish. I have seen. Bar Emmon paled, swallowing. Then, nay stands, but ire softens. He sat. Tally still past majority. Bran pronounced, "So sworn." The hall exhaled as one. Tyrion poured wine, passed cups, even septics accepted. Asha Greyjoy swaggered to Daenerys, clinked goblet. 5 years, Dragon Queen. Try not to burn ships again, aye? Daenerys managed ghost smile. Aye. Jon drifted near, relief easing lines on brow. They exchanged look. Uncertain, tender, unresolved. Words could wait. Deeds must come first. Night fell. Feasts sprung in courtyard, cautious, celebrating. Minstrels tuned lutes. Children chased snowflakes swirling from stars. Above, Drogon glided once round towers, then soared high, banking toward white moon. Hearthfires reflected off his scales like living runes. Some said they saw across his belly a faint shimmer of crimson where once only black, as though fire within had cooled to ember, awaiting call. In weeks that followed, council met daily. They enacted grain relief to King's Landing, appointed Gendry Baratheon Master of Ships, tasked Lady Mannerly with overseeing reconstruction funds. Tyrion compiled ledger of debts. Daenerys contributed Dragonstone's treasury, fulfilling vow. Unsullied escorted convoys, protecting from bandits emboldened by chaos. Grey Worm and Davos drafted Code of Freedmen Rights, the first such charter, signed by council, sealed with Dragonstone obsidian and wolf wax. Copies carried by ravens to Slaver's Bay. Ironbank, Bravos Daranuaiki. At Winterfell, small miracles bloomed. Dothraki herded northern Garons alongside Karstark riders, learning to shoe horses for winter. Northern children gawked at unsullied spear drills and mimicked forms, turning sticks into disciplined phalanx games. Sansa hosted sewing circles where Dornish seamstresses taught silk embroidery, while northern tailors shared wool secrets. The wall of fear cracked. Daenerys rode often with Mira Reed into Wolfswood, studying herbs for burn salve. She visited the field hospitals twice daily, kneeling beside cots, speaking Valyrian blessings. She wept less. One dawn she climbed tower parapet and found Bran already there. Blanketed, staring east. "You see everything?" she asked. "Enough." His breath misted. "Do you see me, 5 years hence?" He paused. "I see many paths. In some, you stand before the council and step down content. In others, wings eclipse sun. Nemsuiter. She bowed head. Which is more likely? That is up to you. He faced her, eyes soft. The wheel you vowed to break. Sometimes wheels become cogs in larger engines. They turn again unless removed. She considered. Perhaps I will hold the spoke rather than shatter hub. Bran's lips twitched. Sometimes, holding suffices. They watched sunrise paint clouds gold. In that hush, she felt something lift. Not the guilt. Never, but the aloneness. The boy's presence, vast and gentle, was company like she'd never known. Later that day, ravens arrived. Tycho Nestoris of the Iron Bank sought audience, citing loans defaulted by a crown. The council groaned. Daenerys smiled thin. Let us invite him. There are new terms to negotiate. For once, diplomacy excited her more than destiny. South in ruined city, wildfire pockets flared still. But new walls rose under masons' hammers. Tyrion oversaw reconstruction, commuting by Raven scrolls. He would return once foundations laid. He corresponded with Samwell Tarly, Archmaester in Old Town, drafting laws for Grand Council of the Six Kingdoms. Some whispered it might become 7 again if Prince Quentin assented. Sam wrote of white ravens breeding, sign of long winter receding. Hope fluttered. North of Winterfell, a merchant clearing became burial field for victims of King's Landing, charred bones carried by kin. Daenerys attended rites cloaked in plain wool. She spoke no words, but shovel in hand she heaped soil over remains. Some stared, appalled. Others saw tears glistening. When ceremony ended, a mother of 2 sons slain approached, placed blackened jewelry in the queen's palm. Keep bronze, so I remember you remember, she said. Daenerys bowed, pocketed trinket, heart aching. Jon watched from shadow of an elm. Later he found Daenerys alone at Lake Bank. She skipped stone across glassy surface. He spoke softly. You're helping. She shrugged, eyes glistening. He added, you helped me once believe in dragons. I never asked if you believed in wolves. She glanced sideways. Wolves hunt in packs, dragons alone. Her voice broke. Maybe worth believing. They sat in quiet. Ghost waded, lapping water. Overhead, a raven croaked, wheeled away. Jon finally said, when 5 years pass, what will you do? She thought long before answering. If I tame fire in me as Bran tamed Drogon, I will fly east and heal Volantis slave pits. She laid a hand upon his. Unless realm still needs me. Unless you need me. He squeezed her fingers. Uncertain of tomorrow, but certain of present. We shall see. Drogon circled, casting their figures in vast shade. His roar echoed mountains, more call than threat, an anthem to uncharted age where ice and fire found fragile accord. 2 years later, midsummer sun blazed above New Capital at River Run, chosen for Central River trade. Council Hall of carved cedar hosted assembly where Daenerys and Garland co-presided. Grain silos overflowed. Sam Tarly read decree abolishing feudal tithes that starved peasants in winter. Quentin Martell stood, offering Dornish water rights to irrigate Reach vineyards. Gendry proposed canal linking Blackwater Rush to Rose Road. Tycho Nestoris grinned at prospect of profits. Outside, children chased one another beneath banners displaying intertwined sigils. Dragon curled around Direwolf, flanked by Sunspear and Rose. They called themselves Dawnwings, embodiment of new dawn. On Godswood Hill beyond city, Bran distantly watched through raven eyes. Beneath his calm, he felt tidal pull of destinies branching. Some still whispered that the queen remained murderer. Some plotted sabotage. Wheels of rivalry never stop. But in this hour, at least, men argued within halls, instead of fields strewn with corpses, and dragons dozed rather than scorched. He whispered to leaves, hold fast. Far to the west across Sunset Sea, rumors spoke of new threat. Greyjoy raiders chasing plague ships. In Slaver's Bay, the resurrected sons of the Harpy plotted. There would always be fire to quell. Yet a council of many hands now held buckets rather than blades. In the starlit quiet that night, Daenerys climbed River Run's tallest tower. Drogon waited, wings folded, eyes reflecting constellations. She touched snout, murmured thanks. He blinked slow. On parapet, she saw Jon emerge, hair caught by warm breeze. He joined her silently. They watched river gleam below, torches winking like grounded stars. She leaned into him, and for first time in memory, no ghosts of bells rang in her skull. Beyond, Bran opened eyes in Winterfell Library, quill hovering above parchment where he mapped seeds for orchard to plant around new orphanage. He smiled faintly. The wheel still turned, but spokes, tempered by sorrow and hope, moved now through gentler gears. And somewhere wild in Wolfswood, pups howled beneath half-moon, answered by distant roar that shook treetops yet sparked no fires. History would recall that midnight as moment the realm balanced upon blade of dragon's mercy and did not slip. It would speak of a boy in chair, a queen with burned hands, a wolf-blood king, and a council that dared to believe broken things could heal. It would sing of ice and fire mixing not to tempest but to temper, steel for forging peaceful age. Yet those living it knew only this: tomorrow's dawn would come cold or warm, depending on choices yet made. So they did the only thing mortals ever can. They rose each day, listened for old ghosts, answered with new vows, and carried forward, step by step, into the unwritten lines of story where snow might melt gently and dragon's breath might light hearths rather than pyres.